The private session he forgot to turn on, the night his music played where it shouldn't. At 9:05 p.m., my phone told me where his body was without asking about his soul. Listening on, Room 514 TV, the banner said, as cheerful as a maitre d' who knows your alias. Under it, the small betrayal of metadata, playlist, velvet hour, track, hands where the heat is. Our music app thinks romance is a set of settings. We share a family plan because convenience uses the same fonts as trust. Tonight, Trust sent me a push notification. He'd left at 8 in the jacket that flatters him even when mirrors preach. Wrap toast, he'd said, 2 words that make celebration sound audited. Then notes with Raphael, don't wait. Raphael handles sound. He carries microphones like small animals with delicate tempers and listens the way air does when it's taking minutes. A cinnamon thing had been making the apartment honest since 7. The light climbed the wall in obedient squares and refused to narrate me. I tapped the banner. The app opened with the innocence of a child and the memory of a spy, who's listening, a row of circles, mind silent, his glowing, device, room 514 TV. Location hint, Hotel Aurora courtesy of a helpful integration we forgot to disable. Beneath a little gray line, private session, off. He once told me private sessions were only for surprise playlists and gift season. Everyone lies politely to themselves. The cinnamon exhaled patience into a kitchen that didn't deserve it. I put on the jacket that knows how to mind its own business and walked into air that had chosen to be honest. The Hotel Aurora is mid-century manners grafted onto new money. Brass behaves on the doors, and the lobby smells like lemon with a graduate degree. I didn't go to the desk. I let the elevator write our silhouettes in mirrored chrome and spell my name backward while deciding whether to be brave. On 5, the carpet hushed my shoes and the hallway learned discretion. 514 had a door that had forgiven too many people. I knocked once, a knock that could be denied later. Through the wood, a bass note pulsed in a way that pretended not to know me. The music's chorus arrived a beat late, too smooth to be innocent. The lock clicked. The door opened halfway. Raphael, barefoot, t-shirt soft with a decade of rehearsals, looked at me with the calm of a man trained to stand exactly where a room remains survivable. Behind him, on the dresser, the TV displayed a tasteful visualizer. Slow waves of amber, the app's idea of privacy in public. In the corner, my partner, Owen, stood by the minibar with a bottle of sparkling water and a mouth rehearsing sincerity. "Silas," he said, my name with the softness of a receipt. "Your music thinks it's an informant," I said, because humor is the leash I use to keep panic from bolting. I held up the screen. Listening on, room 514 TV. Raphael didn't apologize, he did logistics. "I'll give you to the room," he said, the way a professional unscrews a mic and retires it. He set the water carefully on the counter, took his keys, and moved past me with a nod that neither provoked nor retreated. The hallway swallowed him without gossip. "Not here," Owen said, eyes flicking to the camera pearl mounted above the TV, a moon with HR policies. He tipped his head toward the balcony, a shallow ledge of concrete and glass where the city would mind its own business if we were lucky. "There's air." The balcony wore Paris like a careful shirt. Traffic performed competence. The wind took a position and kept it. Owen leaned against the cool glass and let the night translate his pulse into visible breath. "I lied when I left," he said. He doesn't waste adjectives when he intends to be correct. Rap happened. People used their best grammar on goodbye. I told myself I wanted 30 minutes where being interesting didn't have to pass inspection. Raphael asked the kind of question that makes silence feel like an accomplice, and I mistook that for permission. "Are you sleeping with him?" The question is a cliff. There isn't a scenic route. You count to one and you make your mouth earn its keep. Not yet, he said, clean, immediate. Then lower, with the honesty that knows exactly which muscle wants to bruise. I brought my mouth. A bus sighed below us like a man reconsidering a boast. I stepped closer because cold is an argument I can win. I lifted 2 fingers to the soft place inside his wrist where men keep their apologies and felt his pulse write my name there without permission. His eyes closed like doors designed to expect hands. Under my palm at the small of his back, where his body keeps its best arguments, heat had already paid the cover. My hand remembered the route. You like wanting that proves something kindness can't, I said. I didn't make it cruel. Cruelty is lazy precision. You treat intimacy like a sport and honesty like off-season training. You like to coach, he said, the corner of his mouth attempting a better room, which is unfair and also why we still have furniture. What do you want? I asked. Now not the apology you drafted for daylight. He stepped into the inch that becomes a lie if you respect it too long. Heat crossed cotton like a fact that doesn't ask for a vote. He spoke close enough that punctuation found my lower lip. I want to go home, he said. I want you to want me where our towels remember us and desire doesn't need a login. We didn't kiss where a camera could claim royalties. I put my thumb at the hinge of his jaw, the place truth hides, and let the city look away. Then we went back inside and turned the music down to a volume that admitted what it was, a mood with delusions of plot. A housekeeping card on the desk said turn DOWN service in 3 languages. I flipped it over because symbols deserve work and wrote nothing. Owen picked up the card, read the blank, and breathed like a man learning to count. We didn't use the bed, he said, which is the sort of sentence rooms enjoy hearing. He looked at the TV's frozen waveform the way a man looks at his reflection when a suit is the wrong answer. I put on the playlist because I wanted to control something that would do what I said. Music isn't consent, I said, and reached out to turn the TV off. The room fell quiet, relieved of adjectives. We left without waiting for elevators. In the lobby, Lemon pretended to be absolution. Outside, weather declined to narrate us. I respected it for that. We walked the long way home, the good long, the kind that burns off a performance before it becomes a costume. The cinnamon had kept faith beyond the call of sugar. We ate it at the counter with our fingers because forks would have lied. He leaned into the drawer that sticks, the posture that means he's willing to be moved and wants me to be precise about where. I slid my palm under his shirt and found heat like an address that still prints both our names on the mail. He tipped into me, gratitude giving him weight and accuracy. We were careful in bed, not the kind of careful that kills heat, the kind that knows where to fold it so the room won't have to testify. He knows where to set his hand on my ribs so the rest of me turns without issuing a press release. I know where his shoulder hides when it runs out of brave, and how to coax it into telling the truth with weight and breath, and a mouth that has stopped trying to rescue him and still wants him. I won't draw you a choreography. I'll tell you the room remembered to breathe, and morning forgave us because it had other work. We slept like people who aren't finished. Light shouldered the blinds with the confidence of a suggestion. He made coffee the way he does when he wants me to listen. The music app sat between us on the table like a witness who didn't understand jurisdiction. On its screen, a tidy history confessed. Velvet Hour 8:59-9, 13, room 514 TV. Under it, a slider labeled private session begged to be misunderstood. He started with small truths because small truths keep larger ones upright. I like the way Raphael listens, he said. I liked feeling like quiet was an answer. He looked at the slider the way a child considers a forbidden switch. He didn't want to be the sentence I was trying to say. He told me I belonged at home. "Do you?" I asked, making sure the verb was present and unambiguous. "Yes," he said, "to want this, to want you where the towels remember us, to be boring with you on purpose, not as an apology." We made boring plans because boring is how you keep lives from becoming memorabilia. We unlinked the hotel integration, disabled devices nearby, killed the setting that lets TVs flirt with playlists, and turned private session into always on with a password we both know and promise not to use against each other. We wrote a rule on the back of a grocery receipt and stuck it to the fridge. If one of us wants 30 minutes of attention that isn't from the other, name it craving, not crisis. Walk it by the river. Spend it on pastry mean enough to bully thought. It isn't romantic. It's maintenance. It's oil for the hinge that keeps the door from learning to shout. 2 afternoons later, I saw Raphael under the awning of a cafe that smells like ambition and lemon, the city's favorite lie. He gave me the nod men use when they've chosen to be furniture on purpose. He didn't apologize and I didn't deputize. We stood next to a chalkboard where strangers purchase the day in soup. "I'm not chasing a medal," he said, voice neat, consonants cleaned by years of headphones. He kissed me once. I told him he was saying the sentence in the wrong room. "I want my bed for sleep and his mornings to belong to you." "You could have said nothing," I said. "You could have imagined worse," he answered. "This makes both our lives cheaper." He looked at the street as if sound were visible when it behaved. "You don't need my testimony, but if it steadies you, nothing worth deleting happened." "It steadies," I said, and found that it did. Not a miracle, just a foundation. We did not become friends. We became men with a shared interest in someone else's better decision. There are worse treaties. A week later at 9:05 again, as if the hour had applied for tenure, the app sent me a suggestion with the kind of optimism that offends. "Because you liked Velvet Hour, try Afterglow." Across the room, Owen lifted his phone with a small, honest smile that moves furniture and said, "Play Dishwasher," which is our joke for white noise that keeps us from narrating ourselves to death. The speaker obliged with water and hum, dutiful as a river with a union. On certain nights when the city forgets to be clever, his mouth finds mine with the urgency thunderstorms claim, and the patience laundry requires. We stay just on the lawful side of the line because good heat doesn't need choreography to be true. When it's done with us, when we are done with it, he rests his palm at the small of my back like a bookmark that has always known the right page. Sometimes the app still sends smug summaries. "You listened for 3H12M devices. Home speaker, phone, private session. On." I don't trust it. I trust the square of light at 4 when it climbs our wall like an idea that finally put on shoes. I trust the bowl that catches our phones like obedient coins. I trust his hand knowing my ribs without asking for permission from rooms or playlists or televisions. A month later, an invitation slipped into my inbox from Hotel Aurora, exclusive rooftop listening event. The subject line had the gall to use our vocabulary. I forwarded it to trash and then to Owen with a single word: "No." He wrote back "please" and then "home." I replied "always" and watched the tiny dots dance, 3 polite pulses that spelled a promise. We didn't go to a rooftop. We went to our kitchen. He cut oranges like patience. I made coffee like proof. We played nothing, which felt extravagant. The silence did its slow, honest work. The plant pretended not to die. We put the receipt back on the fridge and called the rule our calendar instead of our emergency. It would be neater if the story ended there. It didn't. Nothing good ends. It develops a routine. One night the app hiccuped and announced he was listening on guest room TV. We don't have a guest room. We found the culprit in the hallway, Our neighbor's teenager borrowing our Wi-Fi name like a thrifted jacket. We changed the network to both, the barista's favorite thing to write on our pastry box, and the password to a string that remembers where the light falls in our bedroom at 4:03. If my phone ever again tells me where his music plays when it shouldn't, if another screen volunteers to narrate our appetite as if appetite were a playlist, I trust we know the script. I'll look at him, and he'll look at me, and we'll decide, quietly, domestically, with the stubborn mercy of people who keep choosing, to side with our kitchen over the lobby, our chipped mugs over someone else's glassware, this particular door learning, over and over, to open from the inside. 2 footnotes, because lives adore encores. First, I changed his contact from Owen to Owen, home. Hyphens don't do miracles, they perform administrative grace. When my hand forgets itself at 3:17, the dash persuades it to put the phone down and reach for an actual person. Second, I kept the original screenshot, the one that says listening on. Room 514 TV with private session. Off underscored like an indictment. Not to punish us, to mark the hinge where the night swung. A tidy rectangle proving that a playlist can mistake itself for a plan, and that 2 men, if they're stubborn enough, can outsing it in a room that refuses to keep score.